The aviation industry has become an integral part of socio-economic life of our country. It is important to note that the aviation sector is regarded as a strategic industry, not only for its potential for economic growth, but also its crucial role in national development and regional integration, facilitates international trade by providing fast transportation network cannot be enhanced without a very formidable and strong aviation industry. The aviation industry is part of the transport infrastructure on which many other parts of the economy depend on to a very large extent. Its contribution to the Nigerian economy and its direct impact on our GDP cannot be overstated. We had our public hearing from 2nd to 4th. In the course of passing this, the 6th executive bills, which covers the AIB, Accident Investigation Bureau, FAN, Federal Airport Authority, then we have the NCAA, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, and you have NEMA, Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, NAMET, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, and the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology in Zaria. During this public hearing, ladies and gentlemen, formal and informal presentations were made. And I said formal and informal. There are things that people say when they are facing the camera, but there are things they will not say when they face the camera. It is when you step aside with them, they start opening up and telling you some things. And you try to find out, why didn't you say this? They tell your guy, you want some people to run after us. We particularly held interactions with airline operators, and a few important factors came to limelight. One of which is that the step needed to bring about resuscitation and sustainability in the aviation industry is far beyond the capacity of airline operators. It will indeed require executive orders which must be adhered to. That is, in the course of our interactions with stakeholders in the aviation industry, we discovered that there are issues which is actually beyond even the Ministry of Aviation. No matter the effort of the Minister of Aviation, it must land on the table of the Federal Executive Council, where a lot of deliberations will take place. A few other important observations have been made in the course of our interaction. No one here could say that you can endeavor not to fly for a year or 2 years. You wouldn't know when you will need to fly. You wouldn't know when your brother or your sister or your children will have to fly. So when we talk about aviation industry and we talk about some of the challenges that are capable of causing sleepless nights, we have a duty to make this thing known to Nigerian people and to the federal government of Nigeria. And this is in line with our calling and the constitutional provision of Nigeria. Now they talked about one other issue. There has also been non-compliance of the executive order on the removal of value-added tax from air transport. Value-added tax and other taxes in most nations do not affect the aviation industry. The reason is very simple. You have an aircraft or carrying out that has capacity of maybe 150 passengers and is flying with 50 passengers, and yet you are taxing them. Well, you may say they must pay tax, but in some nations they don't because of the vital role of aviation industry. Now, we are saying this because we know the consequences, God forbid, when airlines start cutting corners. You know, we've had a long period of safety on the sky in Nigeria. Things have been going well. You know, people have been flying, and we thank God that we never had any mishap. Why we are raising this issue is that we don't want it to be said that when you people had this, why did you keep quiet? You know, so what we are raising is for the best interest of every one of us. And of course, we are doing that for the cause of our nation. The inability of the airline operators to have access to single-digit lending as obtainable in other parts of the world. In most parts of the world, the airlines are given single-digit interest, so that because of the vital role of which aviation is playing in any civilized society. Now, maybe those of you who go on private jet may not care about what we're talking about. But I'm telling you that those who don't go with the private jet, who go with commercial flight, and today, I mean, Nigerians can even go with private jets. Even those who can go with private jet, they're afraid to go to travel in the private jet. So all of us have seen governors and ministers in commercial flight. So it pays all of us to highlight some of the problems that we are seeing. Some of these problems may sound very, very little, that inconsequential. But God forbid, if the one airline is unable to provide the brake pad and is keep off the track, what do you think will happen? So some of these issues are very, very important. But if they are not raised, if we don't come out to say this, people will say, okay, when you are aware. Or some of them may say, oh, we came for public hearing. We even told the chairman of the aviation that these are some of the problems we are confronted with. So we are saying this because the executive must hear this, and Mr. President himself must get to know that we should not allow the airline operators to cut corners. Quite a number of them said they have imported parts, servicing parts at the airport. They have not been able to claim them because they said, well, the economy is down and they cannot pay. But some of them are still trying to fly. They're still on the sky. So I asked them, how are you doing it? They say, well, we're trying. Now, when the airlines tell you that they're trying, the plane is not a means of transport that you can park and change tire, on the sky. It's not, you cannot say that the engine oil is short. You want to park, you want to refuel on air. So you know the consequences of that. So I'm saying this for you to know the seriousness of the issues I'm raising now. Because some of them didn't come out on the open to say some of this on camera. But we have a duty for the cause of our nation and for the interest of every one of us to highlight some of these problems. The inability of the airlines the inability of the airlines operators to access foreign exchange assets when due to enable them by the value-added part that are needed. In most nations, there are special consideration for airline operators because they must not cut corners. If a part is needed in 3 weeks' time and it's not available, and the plane, the operators decide to be managing, well, you know what will happen. I'll go into details for you to see what they are doing in some African countries so that you can compare what we are doing in Nigeria. And we are highlighting this because when you are convinced with your facts, you come out and say, look, these are the facts we have gathered. It is left for those who are in the industry to dispute our position. But these are the information we have gathered. You will recall that the federal government have considered impacts of the pandemic on the aviation industry with a view to maintaining smooth operations, made the sum of 4 billion naira available as a bailout to these airline operators. With further and more critical intervention with airline operators in Nigeria, we gather that approximately about 50 billion naira will be required to meet the requirement of airline operators in Nigeria. This increase in bail fund is imperative if we have to keep our economy running, guarantee job security, and mitigate retrenchments of workers. A critical look at the aviation industry in Africa, for instance. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen to this. Senegal, for instance, which is no competition for the Nigerian aviation industry in terms of number of airline operators, released the sum of $74 million to airline operators in Senegal. In Rwanda, the Rwanda government, in the course of protecting and enhancing the operations of the airlines in Rwanda, the sum of $150 million was released to airline operators in Rwanda. Taking the scope out of Africa, America, for instance, released the sum of $58 billion as bailout fund for its airline operators, saying that they must not cut corners, they must not manage. Today, let me give you the warning and the danger before all of us. Airline operators in Nigeria airspace, they are managing and they are cutting corners. 4 billion naira cannot solve the problem of airline operators, except you want them to fold up. We do not have a national carrier today. So it is those of them who have invested in the industry that are keeping Nigeria moving. Now, you know, in this country, when you come out to say certain things, it is easier for people to be reading meetings to it. Until God forbid something happen. And you say, but I'm aware. They say, oh, you're aware. Why didn't you talk that time? I want to put it on record that there's danger in flying in Nigeria today, in case you don't know. There have been instances of some planes keeping off the runway. You didn't care to find out what happened. We must support the airline operators, pending when we have our own national carrier, if we so desire. But if we want to continue with the airline operators, like most nations of the world are doing today, you cannot afford to leave the airline operators on their own, because they will want to be in business and struggle to make profits, and by extension, they'll be cutting corners. Some of them confess to us, which they never did on the floor of the public hearing, that they have their goods at the port, that they couldn't claim them because of the charges. I asked them, so how have you been flying? They say, well, we are trying to fly. Now, this is a dangerous thing. No matter the amount of money that will be realized from airline operators, I don't think it's worth the life of one single Nigerian. Not to talk of an aircraft that will carry about 100 Nigerians, about 150 Nigerians. Today, aviation flying is about the safest means now to travel, because you don't talk about potholes, you don't talk about kidnappers, you don't talk about armed robbers. Now, if that is the story, and if more people are flying, many state governments today are already calling on the federal government to come and take over their state airports, which they have built, because they discover that more and more Nigerians are now appreciating the need to fly. Now, for that not to drop, for this increasing number of Nigerians into the aviation and into flying not to drop, we must raise alarm. The alarm I'm raising today is that the airline operators are just managing. Other countries in Africa, they are giving substantial bailout to the airlines. If you say you are not concerned, God forbid, you don't know where you will fly, or your brother will fly, or your parents will fly. So we must come out to say this to you and to Nigerian people, and to please appeal to Mr. President that there's a need to review the 4 billion naira available. Now, the CBN has been in the forefront of bailing out every sector. I think today we don't know whether the CBN Nigeria is a commercial bank or is an Apex bank. But whatever the role they are playing, I think one sector that is critical to socio-economic development of our nation is the aviation industry. We cannot afford not to support the aviation industry. Our further inquiry has shown that airline operators are already discouraged and have resorted to cutting corners in carrying out maintenance requirements of their aircraft. This is, of course, as a result of the poor financial situation. If this is not immediately checked, the effect is best imagined. More definitely, it has to do with the need to give help to them as a result of the pandemic-19.